afternoon everyone, hope everyone is well. I just thought I needed to do this little update video as a follow-up to my last guide video which I did at South Beach, Great Yarmouth. Now if you've seen the video, you'll see in the morning when I first pulled up I detailed some of the parking, and the first lot of parking was outside along the road with meter parking. So the second option was to drive into the Premier Inn car park, which is controlled by meters, and I showed you in the video exactly where I parked and the location of the ticket machine. I parked up, I went over and paid for my ticket, displayed it in the window, went off fishing, come back, unloaded, drove out, no problem. So I come home, and since then, that was the end of September if I believe was correct. Since then I've come home and we've been away for a week down to East Sussex. Returned from our little break and opened the post, and there on the floor when I got back was one of these. Now this is what they call a PCN, a parking charge notice, and when I first saw it I thought it might be from where I've parked somewhere I shouldn't have done while we were away on holiday, because we were in and out of car parks all the time. But no, it turns out that this PCN was actually for the 18th of September when I did my session at the South Beach. And they go into details in here and saying that you're receiving this PCN and the charge notice amount is due is £100. So what they're actually saying is that the offence was that I parked between 9:15 and 3:30 and did not display no valid parking session. Now I already knew that I had, because luckily I kept the ticket. Now obviously I remember going over to the machine and paying, and on this particular day I chose to pay by card, so I had done a quick check on my bank and could see that they'd taken the full amount for the full day, which was £8. So I looked through the paperwork here, and these people, I mean, they even supply little photographs of what time you've come in and what time you've gone out. Yeah, you've got a £100 charge, but if you pay it within 14 days, we'll reduce the penalty to £60. Now, so bearing in mind I've already been away on a week's holiday and it wasn't sent until after I got back, so basically you get 14 days to pay the £60, and by the time we got back and I've got this, I've got 5 days left to either pay £60 or £100. Well, I thought to myself, I've already paid, there's no way I'm going to pay that fine, so I then look into the procedure for appealing, and they gave a little bit on the back, it can only be done online, blah blah blah, there's no phone number. It gives you the chance to appeal. You must appeal within 28 days, and bearing in mind I've already lost like 10 days while I've been away, and you can only do one of two things: you can appeal or pay the fine. There's nothing in between, so obviously I'm going to appeal. So when you go on to it, and this company who are sending out this invoice is a company called Parkmaven, and they're London based, no phone number so you can't ring them up, there's a reference number, but the only way you can get any communication with them is by entering into the appeals part of the process. And once you go in there, you input your reference number, and then you put your car registration, and the next thing you have to basically tick is that you admit to parking without a ticket, which I wasn't going to do. So I thought the next point of contact must be the Premier Inn, so I gave them a ring. Nothing to do with the Premier Inn, they don't control any of the parking, it's all been passed over to separate companies outside of the Premier Inn. They don't deal with any correspondence or any phone calls. So I then go back to my video and look at the footage I took, and I extracted off the footage the actual board with the costs and charges and rules and regulations on them. looked through there and yeah, that's definitely where I paid the money. Definitely went into the machine. It obviously definitely went through because they took the money out of my bank. Luckily as well, I did actually keep the paper ticket. I mean, I slipped it into the middle console of my car, and all last week while we were away I was putting parking tickets in there as we were using them. When this came through, the first thing I did was went out to the car, dug through the pile, and there it was at the bottom. So I've got the actual parking ticket I bought. So I then took the details off the signage, and that gave me a company called Green Parking, who I paid the money to. So I got in touch with those, and there was a phone number for them. None of the reference numbers that were on my PCN meant anything to them. So straight away I sort of smelt a rat, and the guy on the other end of the phone was quite helpful at Green Parking. And he gave me another company to look at, and the other company is called Your Parking Space, and he said sometimes they've had people querying parking tickets from them when it's this Your Parking Space who are actually controlling that particular car park. So I asked him where the limits were of his car park, and he more or less explained they've got the whole control of the car park. But, he said, there is a section to the left near the hotel which is just for hotel guests. Now I explained to him that I wasn't nowhere near that section. I'd literally parked straight as I went in, more or less next to the machine. So he couldn't really explain why I'd been given this summons ticket. But he said basically get in contact with Your Parking Space, which I did. Went through the website, etc. No way on there of phoning anyone, it's all done by email. So I fired off an email with my reference number from my ticket, and sure enough they came back and said that they control the parking in that part of the car park. And so I explained exactly what had happened, and they said, yeah, you have to go through the appeals procedure with your PCN instructions and deal with it like that. So in the end I've had to go back on, go through the appeals procedure on the form, which is putting your registration in, their reference number, and then ticking the box to say that I had parked in a space without paying, basically. And then underneath you do get another box comes up once you've done that, and you can put in your valid reason for doing it. And I put in the valid reason was that I'd actually purchased a ticket, and you can upload a picture. Here's the ticket. I also got a bank statement. There's the bank statement, which you took the money out the next day. Submitted the appeal, and that was that. So I waited 2 or 3 days, and I got a reply. It was only an email this time, not in paper form. And basically what they've come back and said is that I'd parked in the wrong part of the car park. So I'm thinking to myself, when I went to the sign and had a look round, there was no separate part for the hotel, it was all one big car park. So I got an email back a few days later, which was yesterday, and what they're saying to me is I actually parked in a different part of the car park that is not controlled by Green Parking. It's actually controlled by Your Parking Space. Now I can remember being down there and checking all the signage. There was nowhere that said hotel only, Green Parking ends, this other place starts. It was all one big car park, and as far as I could see, you could park where you want. So what I've done is I've now re-appealed again and told them that I've already paid for a full day's parking. I've got no intention of paying again. They've come back to me again with the second email, and they've said, well, we realise a mistake was made, and we're willing to drop the £100 charge down to £10 to cover our costs. So the option now is to pay £10. Well, I'm thinking, no, I've already paid for parking, I'm not paying any extra. So my next port of call was to go back down, which I did, and I went into the car park. I made sure I parked outside this time, didn't take the car in, and I did see the 2 cameras that are placed between 2 sections of car park. So when you drive into the car park on the left hand side entrance, you're arrowed in, and then you've got parking spaces either side of you, as you can see in the diagrams that I'm putting up. And if you carry straight onto the bottom and turn right, you're then in the actual hotel strip, as they're calling it, that's just for hotel guests. There's no signs there that say hotel guests only. It's all one big car park as far as I'm concerned. So I then turned right up to the little entrance onto the beach, and that's where I parked on the left. Now I phoned back Premier Inn to find out what's going on. They've also got I think there's a Beefeater restaurant there as well. And basically what it is, that end of the car park, or the strip nearest the Premier Inn, if you park in there and you're staying in the Premier Inn, or you're eating in the Beefeater restaurant, what you then do is when you go to the bar, you can enter your details into a system that then wipes out your parking ticket. And obviously I didn't go in and enter my details. I naturally assumed that I was being picked up on the camera going in, picked up on the camera going out, and I'd bought a valid ticket from the machine. So what I'm saying to you is, you know, I would not go anywhere near that car park if you're intending to fish that South Beach. You're much better off staying out on the road where it's meter parking. It's controlled by wardens, so if you don't buy a ticket you will be picked up at some point. It's free parking after 6 PM in the evening, which is when a lot of people do go, and you haven't got to start paying again until 8 in the morning. So again, I'll put the diagram up here. This is where I recommend you park, and completely avoid going into these car parks which are controlled by cameras, because my argument is there's not enough signage in there to say it was split up into 2 car parks, and they're saying it's my mistake. So we're at a bit of a stalemate there. £10, are they going to take me to court for £10? Probably not. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a downer on that session, but there you go. I just want to warn everyone so no one else goes in and makes the same mistake as I did. I think if you parked right in the front row of that car park before you go anywhere near the hotel, you'd be fine. You'd put your ticket in, money in the machine, and that's a good point. This particular time I paid by card, and I also had kept the ticket as proof. Now if I'd have gone in that day and paid with coins, thrown that ticket in the bin 2 days later when I cleaned the car out, which is never, basically I wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. I'd have had to either pay the £60 or the £100. I'd have had no proof that I had a valid ticket in that car park. So that's the real reason that I'm putting this video out, so no one else gets caught out. All these cameras and these camera companies are all out to make money. That's all they are. These car parks with the cameras are a menace. So just beware of that when, you know, any of the guides that I've mentioned where there might be cameras, just double check you're parking in the correct area. And on this particular case, I would always say, you know, I'm a person who sort of I'd rather pay cash for everything, but in this particular instance I would always use your card if you're paying for parking, because that gives you, even if you've got no ticket, gives you proof that that company's taken the money out of your account. So on a brighter note, the weather's now cooled off nicely. We've had a bit of rough weather the last few days. The whiting are now turning up here, there and everywhere. So fingers crossed, all being well, I'll be able to get out soon and do another couple of guides. I will watch and double check this time wherever I park, so I don't want to put anyone else into the same situation. But till next time, my there you go.